It's going to be a struggle, I'm sure. Spirit already told me that. That there's going to be a lot of competitors out there. And it's obvious. I mean, you don't even have to talk to Spirit to actually understand that at first glimpse. But it's going to be okay.
Spirit takes very good care of those who work in light and love. As with each other, we also meet Spirit halfway on the work. It's co-creation in its highest form. This is collaborative energy, not codependent. In fact, codependency is disguising the fear in the comfort of composing self-interested relationships. Through this vibration, we breed transactional bonds, which devalue the principle of trust. Trust in the divine, the universe to come through for our choices. It also indicates a lack of trust in self to sell out to the mockeries of what bonding really is meant to extend. Just as creatures that bottom feed, they only scratch the surface and touch on the shiny veneer of things and people. They, at isolated state, are lacking in depth perception.
But there's got to be someone that's going to have to at least try and make it better rather than continuing these energies, enabling the cycles to continue over and over. So it's important not to react and understand on a very deep level to have compassion for those who really feel at a lacking. And even though they may have this pretty facade and all of the effects that say it's showtime, it's all of the aesthetics and spiritual aesthetics.
What we mean by spiritual aesthetics is a claim to the game, while sitting on the sidelines coaching in the same approach as backseat driving. For how would one know the true worth and impact of spirituality unless practiced as preached? I struggle with this from time to time, to be honest, which is natural as this is equivalent to recovery. Recovery of perspective. The game of life allows us to see we win some and lose some. Some just can't accept either polarity. Some are just too busy seeing the deficits in others. In assets protection, we understand the need to walk the floors as much as self-monitor, to regularly vet ourselves, which in the same context means for us to ensure our worth even and especially as we stand or steer alone. If we are able to understand both the sacredness and practicality of context over claims, we can move past the elusive veneer and grow beyond the opacity of our callousness.
To convince, to cave in to the mass appeal. Maybe it's, on a very subconscious level, but very deeply ingrained. I can see it. That's why I won't name names. And it's not that I would discourage others from naming names, because some things need to be called out for sure.
Because when we work with compassion, we get a lot further in life together, for we are able to respond to the misdeeds without condemnation or judgment as peer apprentices. However, compassion doesn't mean loving blindly. It's loving with clarity, addressing the obvious appropriately. So, with compassion, we conduct ourselves in a way that always seeks to protect the highest good, inclusive of the highest potentiality of each person, situation, and choice. The highest exaltation of our free will expresses love in the format of damage control for others' paths. Thus, we also pick our battles in a way that benefits others just the same. So when you say your goodbyes, they are done with purpose, closure, and composure.
But where I'm at right now, I feel as though my purpose is to shine light on these discrepancies, to kind of nudge people in that direction, to kind of nudge the thought processes over to that realm of greater responsibility.
Because sometimes names don't matter. It's a topic each of us has a hand in at one point or another. So it's a point of being suspended in this alternate frame of mind, almost a polarity to our physical demeanor. This coping mechanism may help us visualize this as comparable to grounding our perspective, bringing a rush of blood to our mental state. The blood conceptualized as rerouting within our primary chakra, with the physical sensation reinvigorating the experience of our thoughts. So when we change our physical stance, it has a capability of influencing our position in the experience. We may broaden the context received from this cerebral vertigo sensation to seeing where our thoughts land in this free weighted feeling. I do this sometimes at the edge of my bed when I'm finding I'm taking things too seriously and need to remember my inner child also has a voice. It's a surrendering and embodiment of the Hierophant energy in reverse to me. Also, almost as though the fool mosh pitted his way into the crowd and knocked over the Hierophant and helped him back up again. When we ground ourselves in the spirit of the Hierophant in totality, we have the ability to reform with the flexibility to keep the spirit of rules relevant and their aim honest to intent.
Because shits and giggles don't last very long. I had to cut a lot of people off. And it may have created some enemies, but were you a friend ever in the first place? Well, there's a difference between sharing knowledge and taking knowledge from oneself. It's done with a specific spirit. And if you're just taking love and not giving it back, then that shows a lot more on those characters.
Oftentimes, Spirit gives us opportunities to see the truth of others, even when they're showcased in lies. The karmic experiences are meant to help us resolve our own discrepancies so wisdom is able to be birthed from truth. Because when we see the truth, we may recognize the polarities and side with any fraction of its spectrum. Like the body that does not automatically ground our spirit in whole, the truth, or any fraction of it, isn't validating unless stabilized and fully realized in its coexisting context.
So I can't internalize their burdens. Hopefully they're dealing with them instead of cycling through these negativities. So let's go ahead and start with soul. I feel like we're done with that, right, Spirit? Because I felt automatically triggered, to be honest, to run to the finish with my ideas. But because of what I saw on the outfield, what strategies people are trying to use to advance themselves through writing off the coattails of others, whether that be energetically speaking or like, let me borrow some of your abundance, please.
As triggered as I am to put people in their places, it's not really my place other than to know that the divine is handling it in the seat of justice and judgment. I have my own throne, as do you. Our ancestors also side with this choice and attempt to help us see this. This too shall pass, at least for one that allows for it. Otherwise, we run the risk of returning to the essence of stagnancy without realizing the value and blessing of being put in limbo.
So anyway, I felt like it was important to address that because I felt almost like anxiety in having to step up and like, okay, I'm going to claim my idea. I'm going to go ahead and organize this video so that I can be the first to finish, so that it's going to be a no-brainer to where it originated from.
This display of reactive aloofness is an indication of ego in play to choose to fight such an obviously petty fight. In my former profession, they called this speed to market, but this is the very same type of haste that leads to more errors, more waste, and results with the hamster wheel spinning faster. So one may deliver a slice of truth, but no wisdom. One may discover the know-how, but not dig further to its applications. One may lick the chocolate surface of a donut and not realize its abundance at the core, like a Boston cream donut. It's that concept of cream, the cash rules everything around me abundance mindset, or lack thereof. So when you approach topics of interest or even of disinterest, to think about what ratio or reinvestment of personal abundance suits the greatest potentiality of each beneficiary.
It's like, that's petty. Empresses don't compete. Whether or not you think that's a little cocky of me to say, I'm not like that in real life. Yeah, I'm not. The reason why I emphasize it so much publicly is because I'm teaching myself to stand up for myself,
because I have to have my back regardless of my patterns of lacking and it manifesting in the plane where I'm not quite accepted, just tolerated. And so the reciprocation is a big thing for me to learn in this world, this lifetime. My resentments corner me, and some people know that. So, as much love as I want to give, I am starting to realize the value of temperance, knowing what ratio to give to each person or project. Spirit tells me to start with this one.
I just kind of succumb to these energies. Old self normally succumbs to these energies where I do have a lot of compassion for others, so I kind of give others a break, and then I incur the loss. Well, there's no more of that. And this is what fell on the floor. They need to take care of self, to relax, to nurture oneself, because there's been a lot of heartbreak. Yeah, blood, sweat, tears. You see that? But the inner child is still intact. Do you see this? It's like a tower moment. Do you see that? The way it's depicted? Thank you, Spirit. That was kind of cool. Not kind of, it was cool. Alright, so let's get started on this, because I feel like that was important to address. It was a lot, but I'm going to keep this going. Okay, Spirit, let's go ahead and address the soul. Okay? And while we do that, let's turn... Where's the car keys?
This means we might have a hard time finding our resources to start. This may mean something as basic as resolve in our next encounter, or as deep as finding our true selves and showcasing our gifts instead of aiming to stage our talents as though it were some kind of competition, as though if we didn't stage our talents that someone else would somehow infringe upon our abundance. Because truly, the end result on this earthly plane of societal constructs isolated within the 3D awareness presents us with a singular takeaway. Our product mistakenly becomes our net worth.
It's really hot in here. Let's see how to... Oh, man. What do I do? Let me just open the door.
Yay! That means we were able to let the air out. And this time it took manual effort instead of mechanical. Recall my other reading a few months back in the use of discernment opening a door.
I got amethyst. I didn't know there were crystals in here.
Notice the contrasting colors. This speaks of diversity and how it doesn't always have to result in adversity. The color purple represents the power of intuition and divinity. In contrast, the yellow, representative form of identity and creativity, its energy-based context, friendship, its botanical context, and joy, its emotional context, is in the backdrop. These are symbolic and symbiotic components that gives more meaning to the formation of the crystal. You can also parallel this to the Golden Path or the Yellow Brick Road in The Wizard of Oz.
So remembering that it feels like we can crack under pressure, but to stand strong, and that's not to mean to thicken skin and become calloused. Like I said, those common phrases don't hold very much substance. I saw 1111. So when you look at this, think about the crystals that are created under high intensity, high heat pressure, in the dark, in caves, within the Earth's mantle, right underneath it, right underneath that hard surface, are crystallized beings that do have a great amount of energy to help you through. This amethyst has historic significance to assist with sobriety. So when we talk sobriety, we're not just talking about like, oh, do you have a drinking problem? Do you have a drug problem? No. And it doesn't have to completely correlate to addictions. It can mean the need to detox, detox self from the negativities of this world. And in a way, whatever your methods are, transmuting or channeling, just redirecting your energy in a way that helps you shine, showcase your beauty. Yes, at all different angles. Yes, and so that it creates you into almost a cosmic outlet for everyone else, really. All energies that come in contact with you are bound to receive the effects of your strength, your integrity, your beauty constructed from all of these adverse effects within your matrix. Yeah, okay, so that's the soul. Yay! I like it. Okay, that's a mirror of you. Okay, now what are we going to have to confront, Spirit? Please advise on what we're going to need to confront. What do we need to confront? I feel like that one was one. Didn't fly out, but I feel like it's one. Ah! It's grounding in a way that, it's confronting the community. Shoot. An adult playing catch, it looks like. And it looks like the inner child play, right? So this is intact, but do you see this person of diversity sitting off over here looking at the playtime, wanting to be included, almost dreaming of being included, but not yet? And he's off at a distance. And then you see all the kids over here at play too, like almost like a clique. I'm not saying that it is a clique, but just saying the way everything is positioned leaves this child of diversity in a contemplative energy of wanting to be included. And you see, like, there's children of diversity also in the background, but there's no real sense of inclusivity. So what I'm trying to say is that this picture is to gain. Spirit, help me out here, archangels. How should I convey this? How should we convey this? The ball is up in the air on what to do. Okay? There can be a sense of inclusivity or complacency in remaining, keeping this picture as is. So this picture has potential for change, for inclusivity, for all to play together. Doesn't mean that all have to play together all of the time, because we have diverse interests, but the fact that someone is left out, that is the Five of Pentacles energy. Now this person may be perfectly happy sitting on one's own, but the way it is drawn and positioned is he's sitting on his hands and watching the ball. It's about to be passed to this kid, and so his attention is averted, redirected to where it's going to go. So this kid is actually watching to see.
The image at the forefront and relative midpoint may also speak to role modeling and how we choose to teach our youth. Does it show interaction with the inner child? Does it imply a worldly approach of openness to inclusivity? On the surface of a sunny day where all are presented as free, what does playtime, a place of learning on common ground, involve? Do they all follow the same rules of engagement? How solid are those rules? Who makes them? And lastly, how solid are those founding role models?
What's going to happen next? Almost living vicariously through his surroundings, but not actually living them, living these moments. Just observing, living through observation. And that was me back when I was a kid. So this is not all about me. This is a picture that is expressive in various forms. So to be mindful of the community, your matrix, your being, your every gesture, really. What is your intention? If you look at your gestures and then dive into what the intentions are, at least you'll be able to grasp them on a conscious plane. But like I said, with your shadow work and digging deep and resurfacing them.
When we puncture the surface, we aerate the soil that grounds the grassy lawn or green pastures, its abundant foundation in concept form.
That'll help us reform this picture to one of more union rather than separate areas of life.
The misalignment of staggered positioning inevitably creates staggering effects. Consider this a live embodiment, an expanded form of feng shui, where your energy's context is not defined by your single form, but rather broadened as an interdependent component, given the constant shifts and exchange of others' energy that, once harmonized, is both stabilized and bonded.
Almost, what do you call it? Compartmentalizing the picture. Okay, there's that group, there's that group, there's that group. That happens everywhere. 1818 on the clock. So everyone looks like they're appearing to have fun, but, something better can be done about this picture. So that's what we need to confront. This picturesque view where everything looks fine and great, but when you look deeper, you can see that there's much more to be said about it, to be done about it, to confront that picturesque complacency. So where do we start? Spirit, where do we start on this? Okay. Oh, this is different. Look. Okay. So what's our starting point? I think what this is telling us is it's winter, they're out in the snow. It's an old couple walking through the snow. They're faceless. So I feel like this is meaning to reposition ourselves, kind of fast forward our being to when we're old and less able, on a physical plane at least, more stuck in our own waves. Oh my gosh, that's what it is. Old habits die hard. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, that kind of thing. So it's meant to not just understand the digression of abilities with age and the aesthetic values that we place on each other. It's also to understand what our mental and emotional states will be like, what that means for the future, not just our future, but what we've embedded into life up until the hour of our death. What is our takeaway? What have we given this world? Are we doomed to leave this world and live this world in the Five of Pentacles energy? Because ultimately that's selfish. And maybe when we're young, we're always striving to get out of that Five of Pentacles energy. But when we actually leave it, what have we left behind? Is it going to be that Five of Pentacles energy? So I think that's a starting point there, is to visualize as a part of manifestation on a greater plane, to look at that view of this phase in life.
So let's take a moment to contemplate on what we normally don't consider that might help us stabilize within our now moments. Normally, we don't get this far in reflection because of the struggle to survive long enough to get there. Most don't think past survival mode. Most will consider what elements make it sufficient. So let's think beyond what's good enough and reflect to focus on just what's good. With that leading aspect, what does your retirement plan include? Are you including the quality of life beyond monetary sustenance? Finally, are your current choices in support of this manifestation? Because your end goal for a long-term plan should stray away from short-sighted actions. Your aim would then miss by a long shot.
Ultimately, What are you doing to progress this world? Ultimately, are the seeds that you have planted done so with integrity, or are they seeds of the devil? Oh my. Because you see, this couple is together, but they're not quite intimate. My 22. My grandparents lived till they were, well, my grandma lived to her 80s, late 80s, and my grandfather lived to 90. In every picture that I found of them, which are like hundreds, thousands, both vintage and new school, and every picture I've ever found of them was them holding hands. So when I see this picture and the lack of intimacy, they're living with their canes. That's their support system. As almost to excuse the lack of intimacy is wrong. That's what's wrong with this picture. So it was a reminder that I felt like I needed to speak, because it's not so obvious when you look at it. They're moving along together, almost, if together is what you can call it, by a note of proximity. But greater proximity means touch, the essence of touch, the essence of feeling, both inside and externally. So, anyway, I felt like that was important. Okay, what's the bottom of the deck, Spirit? We've got here. Oh my gosh, picture. Oh. Bottom of the deck of this is retaliate. Oh, cool. So, do you see how that kind of pairs up together? The bottom of the deck for both? Retaliate. So, be mindful of the memories you take and capture, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, but there's so much more meaning when you actually live those moments rather than try to capture an element of it or what you kind of want to take out of it. It's creating a picture versus actually seeing what's in it and living it. So we need to be able to combat those notions, that subtle plane of existence that's very real and just as important. Oh my gosh, how cool. Okay, well, thanks for joining me, liking my ish, and subscribing, and even just stopping by to visit, and hopefully that was helpful for you. But anyway, thanks for joining. Not everything is honky-dory, peachy, smiley, aesthetically sound, but maybe that's not my vibe. Maybe that's not the crowd that I'm supposed to attract. Maybe it's the crowd that actually wants to get ish aligned with the highest path, so we can stop having that finger to point at something else that isn't working, and just having a reason to complain. So anyway, taking responsibility even during fun times, like I said, creating memories, making sure that they're legit with substance. All right, thanks for joining. Have a wonderful day. I know that was therapeutic for me, so hopefully it was for you. Bye again, or I'll see you again later.